For the rest of today, let's go to Luke chapter 7.
So we will spend some time now talking about the story of the widow of Nain having her son raised from the dead. A really significant story, but interestingly, how many places in the New Testament Gospels does this story show up? Because typically synoptics often will repeat stories. And what do we see about this one?
So in this one, you're only going to find it in Luke chapter 7. He's the only one. Luke, the physician, who he has this way of telling you stories that are easy to overlook from other people's perspectives. And in this case, it's a widow in Nain who has now lost her last and only remaining son. It would be so easy to let her just fade into the margins of society and forget about her. And yet Luke tells us her story. So we pick this up starting in chapter 7, verse 11. And it came to pass that the day after, so this is the day after he had healed the centurion's servant or son in Capernaum. So the day after, he went into a city called Nain, and many of his disciples went with him, and much people. Now when he came nigh to the gate of the city, behold, there was a dead man carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow, and much people of the city was with her.
So why do those details matter? Luke really, he says, only son, she's a widow, and we might think, okay, that's interesting. But in their world, why did that matter?
In their world, she's lost her husband, and now she's lost her only son, and her husband's possessions, everything that family would own would have passed to the son. And now when he passes, it doesn't go to his mother, it would go to the nearest kinsman, and not to her. And in some cases, those near kinsmen might take really good care of their aunt or their grandma or their whoever it may be that is the nearest kinsman. But in other cases, they would grind upon the faces of the poor and the widows and the fatherless, so to speak, to use the phrase from the Old Testament. And so we don't know her exact situation here other than Jesus takes time to raise this son from the dead, implication being she was not going to be well taken care of.
In verse 13, and when the Lord saw her, he had compassion on her. And he said unto her, weep not. Now, if you're this widow woman, let's suppose she's never even met Jesus. Some strange man shows up and tells you, yeah, don't be concerned. You've now lost your source of not only economic security, but your last family member who will be there for you in your life. And this woman is going to be completely bereft of relationships. And Jesus shows up and says, weep not. So I pause there for a moment. I say, does Jesus ever say things to me that in the context I'm like, that doesn't make any sense at all? Are you unaware of what I'm dealing with? And you're telling me to be of good cheer. And yet we know how the story ends in this story. So when I read the story, I think, okay, in my own life, am I choosing to trust that when God tells him to be of good cheer, not weep not, that he has a larger plan and he sees how things will end and that it'll be a joyful end?
So in 14, he came and he touched the bier, and they that bare him stood still. And he said, young man, I say unto thee, arise. I think Jesus says the same thing to all of us. That's his invitation to all of us. If you can, once again, not just see this story from one perspective. Don't just put your place or put yourself in the place of one of those disciples following Jesus into Nain and kind of being an innocent bystander watching this miracle take place. Insert yourself symbolically into the story. For some of you, you're going to find it very easy to insert yourself into the place of the widow, feeling like things are happening out of your control and you don't know what you're going to do moving forward. For others of you, you're going to find yourself being able to symbolically be represented by those who are carrying the guy. For others, you're the man who's laying there feeling dead. You've lost something. It's gone. And it's only one person who can fix that. It's only one. And he comes and he touches the bier, stops it, and then tells the man, arise. Just like he tells you and me, arise. So the symbolic buyer here could represent lots of different things for different people in different settings today. Parts of our life that maybe have died, and we need the Savior to come and help those things come back to life. It's beautiful as he sits up. Can you imagine the look on his mother's face and the feeling in her heart and the people all around? He that was dead sat up and began to speak, and he delivered him to his mother. You'll notice Jesus doesn't waste any time to connect that important relationship that Taylor was talking about. He restores relationships. Now, some of you have loved ones who maybe have left their faith and are maybe struggling in various ways in this life. I think that this widow woman, if she were standing here today, I think she would be able to speak with authenticity and saying, hold on to hope, hold on to faith. The Savior is able to do things nobody else can do. And when he chooses to do that, that's up to him. How he chooses to do that, that's up to him. But the Good Shepherd will find ways to reach out to your loved ones who in some respects might be experiencing a death of sorts, and to be able to invite them to arise and then to be able to restore those relationships. This is such a beautiful story of redemption. And I love looking at it, not just from the physical healing, but from all of those spiritual aspects of this miracle that can play out in our lives today.